Thank you, Senator Peterson. With that, we will start with our first presenter. Our first presenter is joining us via Zoom because he lives on the East Coast. His name is Dr. Shiva. He was the one commissioned by the Senate, and that was because we finally got the envelope ballots, or the ballot envelopes, so we could check signatures or lack thereof, and this was his part of the audit. Dr. Shiva, welcome to the Arizona Senate. How are you today?
Thank you very much for having me, Honorable President Fan. Thank you very much. And
Absolutely.
thank you to also Senator Peterson.
Thank you. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you. Before I start, I have a presentation. This is also accompanied by a report. I just want to make one prefatory remark, and that is, as a follow-up to Senator Peterson, we live in the age of what we call engineering systems, complex systems. Taking an airplane, using an iPhone, self-driving cars. These are highly complex systems, but what are known in the modern world as engineering systems. Our election voting systems are also engineering systems. And I want to thank the leadership of the Senate, the stakeholders, because they've taken a historic step here to bring the same level of engineering systems capabilities to election voting systems. And one of those important attributes is that whether an anomaly is small or large, or insignificant or monumental, it all must be welcomed because from an engineering standpoint, it can only do one thing, which is to enhance the system. So today, as President Fan said, I'm going to be sharing with you a particular area that we looked at, which was looking at the early voting ballot return envelope images. And that's what I'm going to share with you. So let me begin. I'm going to start up the PowerPoint, and I think I need to share the screen here. So let me see if I can share first. There. All right, let me start here. So the title of this talk is Pattern Recognition Classification of Early Voting Ballot Return
Dr.
Envelope.
Shiva, the screen is blank.
Oh, it's blank? I'm sharing.
Always a technical problem.
Okay, let me stop the share and restart it again.
Let's try that again. There we go. Thank you. That worked.
Okay, and so the title, as I said, is a Pattern Recognition Classification of Early Voting Ballots Return Envelope Images for Signature Presence Detection. We're not doing signature detail verification, but we're doing signature presence detection, and we're taking an engineering systems approach. So let me begin. I will go through this agenda. We're going to give a little bit of background. We're going to review the Maricopa results. We're going to go through what our analysis resulted in, and then compare them, and then report on some of the key findings and anomalies, and then also raise questions for Maricopa officials, and then propose some recommendations. So the executive summary of this, to sort of summarize the whole talk here today, or the findings, is that the early voting ballot, the return envelope, you really want to think about that's really the protective vehicle by which the EVB, which is the early voting ballot, is transported and processed. And the authentication, the verification of the signature on the EVB return envelope is critical to reliability of the entire process. And our audit reveals anomalies, raising questions on the verifiability of the signature verification process. So let's begin. So a little bit of background, you can read more about it, but I was selected, and I was honored to be selected because my background for more than 40 years has been in the field of pattern recognition and classification, particularly system science, and it goes back a long period of time. But just very briefly, you know, in this field, you look at reality. In this case, we're looking at the electronic, the election voting, the early voting ballot system, and then you try to model it. That's typically what science and engineers do. For example, for many years, I looked at how babies were processing sleep and trying to understand their system by looking at sleep patterns. Same in the area of deaf-blind communications. Again, you have the reality, you have signals. Same in the area of looking at a bridge, and you get signals from it. Based on the signals, you're trying to predict what's going on in that bridge. And same if you look at an aircraft wing, without having to open it up, you look at these signals, and you're trying to predict what's going on. And for many years, we did a project on looking at handwritten bank check numerals. And these different areas, including email, looking at what's inside of an email as a system, these are all pattern recognition problems. And in fact, if you look at food, trying to figure out, will this food cause different kinds of diseases? But the reality in this area is you're looking at the particular real world and you have a model. You can look at the heart, and you can look at the cardiovascular system of that. And you can say, hey, I have some states of this system which are normal signals and some states which are abnormal signals. So in this case, what we're looking at is we have the early voting ballot system, and we have the early voting ballot return envelope images. These are the signals that we received to try to figure out what's going on inside that system. So you have the reality of what took place, and you have the expression of that which is embodied in those images. And this is what one of those images looks like. You have a image, you have upper left the name of the voter, and here you have the signature. And we were asked as a part of the scope of this audit not to look anywhere else, but to look in this signature region and to look to see if there was a normal state, a signature there, or the abnormal states, blanks, split into two, and I'll talk about more in detail, a complete blank or a likely blank, or what we call a scribble. A scribble is something trying to get into the direction of, hey, was this signature even valid, okay? And it's a very, very rudimentary step we took, not full signature verification. All right, so early voting ballot system, and you have these images. So before we head into the actual process we did, let's look at the reality of what took place. So this is on the left side, the actual reality of what was reported by the Maricopa County in their voter education report. In fact, what was called their Canvas report. And what we see here, if you look carefully here are the numbers that they reported from 2016, but more importantly, we're concerned about 2020. And in 2020, one of the lines in their report is called the early ballots verified and counted, which has 1,915,487. And the rejected early ballots, which are these numbers, are the ones that were not included in the final count. Bad signatures, which means they went through a signature verification process. And out of that, 587 out of the 1,918,463, which is all of them, were deemed to be bad signatures. And the way we get this number is you take all of the ones that were verified and counted, the ones that were bad signatures. There were some which were no signatures, which were blanks, and then late returns. So to be clear, according to the report, this was a total number of early voting ballot return envelopes received by Maricopa County. To make it a little more clear, we have 1,918,463 total unique EVB return envelopes, of which 1,455 were found to have no signatures. And at the end, there was an amount of 1,917,008 was ready for signature verification. And as a result of that, 587 were found to have bad signatures. Now in signature verification, it's a detailed process. You can read the report, but counties vary, and Maricopa is considered, along with Florida, apparently have one of the better signature verification processes. But according to that, out of the entire lot of 1,918,463, 587, after this verification process where someone looks at the signature and they look at the voter registration signatures, and they're doing typically what's called a 27-point analysis. So 587 were found to have bad signatures, 934 with late returns, for a total amount which matches with what was reported of 1,915,487. Okay, so this is Maricopa's reported results to the public. The scope of our audit, I'm going to go through the scope of this audit by also going through the process, so they'll be somewhat educational. When early voting ballots, which some people, which is a subset of those are called mail-in ballots, are submitted, those ballots are imaged, which means scanned, converted to digital images. So the EVB return envelopes, we're talking about the outside, the covering, that important covering within which is contained the ballot, is scanned before they're even tabulated. So the EVB return envelopes are opened and scanned, okay? And those create images. In fact, there are 6 different kinds of EVB return envelope formats. Let me walk you through some of them. And here's sort of a little bit closer, but let me walk you through some of them. So This is a majority of them. We've called them the standard image files. This is for our lingua franca. This may not be the standard language, but for the purpose of this presentation. So this is one way that they look. There are also another set called UCAVA image files, and there's 3 different kinds. Here you have the signature here, the date here, the name of the voter here. Another version of that is a little more complicated. It's more of an affidavit. The signature's here, the name of the voter's here, and obviously we redacted stuff for privacy. And a third type of the UCAVA is type C. So you have UIF A, B, and C. All right? Then finally, we have large print image files, LIFs, and these are for people who have trouble seeing. So the instructions or everything are larger. And then finally, you have the Braille format. So again, 6 different image formats that we had to process. Let me walk you through the counts that we got. We got a drive with all of these images on them. The SIFs, which was the first one I showed you, there's 1,919,598, which is about 99.5%. The UIFAs, 8,849.459%. The UIFBs, 277.014%. And if we go to the UIFCs, which are the affidavits, which a small set, which are 0.001%. And then finally, we have the large formats, which are 475.024%, and the Braille, about 29 of them, 0.002%. That added up to all of them. So for the audit, we were provided by the Arizona State Senate 1,929,240. And these were apparently all the EVB return envelopes that Maricopa County got. Okay, what we noticed when we looked at this, which was fascinating, our first interesting, I guess it wasn't an anomaly, but something we were a little bit surprised because we thought the duplicates would have been removed, but there were duplicates in here. So we had to remove duplicates. So out of those set, there were duplicates. So these were the duplicates. We found about 16,934 voters who had submitted 16,934 2-copy duplicates, which means each of those voters submitted 2 ballots. Okay, 2 return early voting ballot return envelopes. Interesting enough, we also found another 188 voters, unique voters, who had submitted 376 duplicates. So the total image count was 564 once you remove the duplicates, right? Because you want to take one of them. And then finally, we found also 4 individuals who submitted 12 duplicates, total images being 16. So the total duplicates was 34,448, total images of which 17,322 were duplicates from 17,126 voters. This was, by the way, we'll get to, it was not reported in the report. So when you look at the first level of analysis on the data that we got, 1,929,240 EVB return envelopes received, we subtract out the duplicates, and then we have 1,911,918,000, okay? So the process that we were really commissioned for was to do a very, basic analysis to see, is there a signature there or not? Signature presence detection. So in that process, again, the goal is there a signature there in the signature region? Interesting enough, some people don't follow instructions, they write all over, but it wasn't our job to go scan everywhere. Our job was to look in that signature region. So again, specifically, we looked in that signature region. One category of the signature region has a signature, another category is blank, likely, blank, and scribble. And just to keep it real simple, it was a very simple classification. If it's 0% non-white pixel density, which means nothing in that area, it's a blank. If it has a little bit, 0% or greater, but no more than 0.1%, like this example here, we put it into another category just for early classification purposes. We called it a likely blank. And then if it was greater than 1% density, greater than 1%, or that was denoted, a scribble. And what's interesting, in anything over greater than 1%, by the way, this should be 0.1% to 1%. Slight mistake here. So this is greater than 1%, okay? So let me repeat, this should be greater than 0.1%, less than 1%. Please correct that. And this is greater than 1%. All right. Then, what we did was we did a distribution curve. We looked at all of the ballots, and we did a distribution of pixel densities, just to give you an idea of how liberal we were in accepting something as a signature. So if you look at this, it was only this little area here, which is between 0.1 to 1%. That's a definite non-white pixel density. That's a scribble. Everything else, we were quite liberal and accepted those as signatures, even in our analysis. So again, we were not hired to do signature verification. All right. Now, after this, typically signature verification would take place, which is what the county did, and then they would also open up then the ballots and then open up the envelopes and tabulate them. So let's go to our signature presence detection. So we took a ballot, or it could be any ballot. First of all, we classified it into one of these 6 categories. That's what the system did. And then for each one of for 4 of those, we removed the duplicates, as I've shared. And then we looked at the ballots. Once we knew which one it was, we identified what kind of region. We extracted the region. If possible, though this was not part of the scope, we also tried to extract the name. We were able to do that for close to, I think, 99% of them. So we also used different types of classifiers, which is in pattern recognition lingo, for each one of these different kinds of ballots to ultimately put them into one of these 4 buckets. So let's look at the results. So we're first going to look at the non-duplicates, which means all those early voting ballot, EVB to be simple, return envelopes, which were non-duplicates. And here we see predominantly 99.77%, we denoted a signature. Again, anything greater than 1% pixel density. These scribbles we found were 0.13%, okay? 2,420. And the blanks fell into 2 groups, the definitive blanks of 1,771 and the likely blanks of 101. This adds up to 0.1%, okay? Then we also looked at the counts. So of these you had, just to be clear, we had 2,420 scribbles and we have 1,872 blanks. We put both of these together in our sum total. Similarly, we now went and looked, this is a little more complicated, at the 2-copy duplicates, because we had to deal with those. There was a substantial amount, 34,000 of them, 34,000 and more. So the duplicate recognition split it into 3 groups, but we had subgroups. So there could be, you have if you think about it, the mother and the son, or the mother and the daughter, okay? Or the parent and the child relationship. So one of the 2, one could have been a signature, and one could have had a signature. One could have had a signature, the other could have had a blank. One could have had a signature, that could have been a likely blank. One could have had a signature, and C denotes scribble. If any one of them had a signature, we said, okay, we call it a signature. Alternatively, in the scribble area, one could have had a scribble, other could have been a blank, one could have been a scribble, other could have been likely, one could have been a scribble and a scribble. These were denoted as scribbles in the duplicate case. And then finally, you had ones that are blank, 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 and likely blank, and likely blank. Those were denoted as blanks. All right. So let me, just to give you some feeling of what these look like. So here is one from the same person. Again, for the purpose, we're not allowed to share the names of voters, et cetera. But you can see here that here's one, there is a signature here and there's a signature here. Okay, but they are both the same, so these are both signed. So 2 ballots, both signed. Another example is one is signed and the other is a blank, a complete blank here. In fact, in the signature region is what we're concerned with. Another is signed and the other one's a likely blank. It's got some stuff here. So ECHOMEL categorized it as a likely blank. Here's an example where you have a signed one, but you have a scribble over here. Okay? And then here we have a scribble, but here you have a blank, but it has been verified and approved. And we'll talk about this later. We'll come back to this. Here you have one that's a scribble, a little bit, some stuff here, and a likely blank. And the one with the scribble was approved. Here you have 2 scribbles, and one of them was approved, the exact same ones. And here you have one with a blank, and this blank has been approved. And here we have one which is a blank, and a likely blank with the little dot over here has been approved. And similarly over here, we have a signature and a likely blank, and again, the likely blank is being approved. And here's an example of a 3-copy one. We have 3-copy duplicates, all are blank. And we'll come back to showing how if they were approved or not. And here's an example of 3-copy scribbles. All right, So that gives you an understanding of the flavor of these, the analysis we had to do of these 2-copy duplicates. And so on those 2 copies, we categorize these ones in green as signatures, the ones in red as scribbles, and the ones in blank as, black as blank, the ones in red as scribbles. So again, you have for 2 copies, 16,934. And these are the counts on that. So you have 155 scribbles from the 2-copy, 45 blanks from the 2-copy. Interesting enough, we also had 3-copy and 4-copy analysis we had to do. I'm not going to go into all the details of this, but there were also 3-copy and 4-copy duplicates. There were 2 sets of 3-copy which were blank. 2 sets which were scribble, 5 which were blank. So now we do the totals calculations. So if you add the non-duplicate blanks, 1,872, 2-copy duplicate blanks, 45, and then 3-copy duplicate blanks, you get 2, so 1,919. Similar if we do the scribbles, 2420 for the non-duplicates, 155 for the 2-copy, 5 for the 3-copy, we get 2,580. So our net results state that we received 1,929,240, the 17,322 were removed to get this many unique return envelopes. And then we subtracted the non-signature and what we call scribbles to come up with a total of 1,907,419. So this is what we would have sent to, in this analysis, should have gone to signature verification. Now let's do the comparative analysis, which is looking side by side what EchoMail uncovered from the audit and what Maricopa had. So how many EVB return envelopes were received? Well, in the disk drive that we received, this is a number, but we don't know. In fact, it's not reported in the Maricopa report how many actual return envelopes they received. The duplicates, we have 17,322, which will be subtracted. This is unreported. So when you compare the unique EVB return envelopes, what you find is that Maricopa has 6,545 more than we have in the possession of those image files after you remove duplicates. Now we go to the signature presence detection. We discovered 1919 no signatures. They reported 1455. So in this case, we have 464 more blanks. In the scribbles, they don't have a scribbles category, and we'll discuss that. If we start thinking about these scribbles as potential bad signatures, we'll get some insight. But at the end of the day, what went to signature verification at Maricopa was 1,917,008, which is 9,589 more than we would have sent pursuant to this analysis. They also had bad signatures and late returns that we talked about. Okay. Now, I want to go to the key findings and anomalies. You've seen the process, you've understood the methodology, we've gone through some detail. Let's go to the highlights here. So these are the key findings, and I'm going to go through each one of them. One of the key findings is it's unknown how many EVB return envelopes were originally received by Maricopa. We had 34,488 duplicates from 17,126 unique voters. It's actually duplicate images. Maricopa reported no duplicates in the Canvas report. We have 464 more no signatures between blanks than that were identified by us versus Maricopa. Maricopa has 6,545 more unique EVB return envelopes. This is what's interesting. If you consider our scribbles, again, a very, very low tolerance in pattern recognition, having done this for over 40 years, you know, we could have used like 36 features. We used one single feature, pixel density. We would love to use more features, but just using that one feature at a very low threshold is key here, we've identified 2,580 scribbles, which would have assumed they're all bad signatures. Maricopa identified 0.031%, which is what that 587 represents. This actually represents 4 times that. We'll come back to that. Finally, Maricopa has 9,589 more net EVB envelopes that was submitted to signature verification versus what we have. And what we're also going to see shortly is that we're going to see that we also saw through further analysis a 25% surge of duplicates in the last 6 days between November 4th to the 9th. We also saw some very interesting other anomalies where blanks of duplicates were being stamped, verified, and approved. We also saw stamps of verified and approved in blank signature regions, and I'll share with you those. What's more interesting, I would consider it's potentially a critical anomaly, is that we saw the verified and approved stamps appearing behind the envelopes. And I'll show you this. It's almost as though it was imaged on there, or I don't want to say, Photoshop, but put on there. But it's quite fascinating. I'm sure there's some explanation for this. And then finally, we have cases where we have two different voter IDs having the same address, same phone, same name, with matching signatures. So let's go look at some of these anomalies a little more graphically. Anomaly 1, Maricopa reported only 587 bad signatures. To give you some idea, that's 0.031%. And for people who didn't really like math, I thought I'd make it a little more pictorial. So this would be one bad signature for every 3,268 early voting ballot envelopes. So if you think about 1,918,463 early voting ballots, the unique ones that Maricopa said they got, and for each paper, by the way, the size of the paper is 0.1 millimeter, and you were to put them up, you would get 630 feet. That's the size, believe it or not, it's of the St. Louis Arch. That height, when compared to the bad signatures, would be only about 2.31 inches. So just to give you a pictorial understanding, a very, very low percentage was considered that. So again, that would be, to be specific, 0.0306% of all EVB return envelopes were deemed as bad signature. Okay. In our case, the anomalies, we discovered 2,580 bad signatures, scribbles. Again, very low tolerance, which is 0.135%. And to give you an idea, just to state it again, we were commissioned to identify the present blank scribbles and signatures, not to perform signature verification. So scribbles alone were considered bad signatures, and EchoMail itself identified 335% more bad signatures than Maricopa did from its entire signature verification process. Okay, very important point here. And by the way, if we go look back at the state of Arizona 2016 general election, out of the 2 million ballots that came in, they had a signature mismatch rate of 0.13%, close to what we would have had if we just included those scribbles. All right. Again, just to restate, the scribbles are a very, very low threshold. We were not asked to do signature verification. Again, anything between 0.1 to 1% pixel density. The third anomaly is, this is again, focusing on signatures. We did a randomized analysis of just supervised review, which is human review, just randomly looking at signatures, their legibility. Again, this is a wonderful analysis that can be done in handwriting, 4 weeks before the election and 4 days after. We can't share with you this, obviously, but we found out 4 weeks before, 95% were legible signatures and only 5% were illegible. But 4 days after, 5% were legible, 95% were illegible. If I were to do a heat map, again, this is a representation, it would look like this, where the red represents illegibility and the green represents legibility. It would look like this if you wanted to visually do this. And if we had more, if we were commissioned to do this, we could do this. But you can see a marked difference between legibility. There could again be an explanation for this. Fourth anomaly. As the EVBs, which means the electronic voting ballot, I couldn't put the word envelopes, but I think you get the idea, increased by 53% in the general election from 2016 to 2020 in Maricopa, bad signatures decreased. Let me explain what I mean by that. So in 2016, which is, in the previous election to 2020, 1,257,179 return envelopes were submitted. 1,456 were considered to have a mismatch with a rejection rate of 0.116. In 2020, we have nearly 52% more return envelopes, but the signature mismatch rate goes down by nearly 56%. So it's gone down by a significant number here, okay, nearly 4 times. So this went up, the other two came down. A very interesting inverse relationship, which would be, again, one of the questions we have for Maricopa officials. Anomaly number 5 is there's no mention of duplicates in Maricopa Canvas report. Again, if you look here, here's a Canvas report. There's no mention of duplicates here. In our case, we found 17,126 voters sent in 2 or more ballots as duplicates, as you've seen before. Anomaly 6 is 25% plus or more of the duplicates came in during November 4th to the 9th, essentially on election day and after. So how did we find this? Well, here's a plot. Again, let me walk you through this. On the y-axis is a number of early voting ballot return envelopes, and we're plotting it by date. And again, this is based on the drive we got, which were timestamped by particular days. So it almost looks like an interesting heartbeat here. So on this day, 10/14, nearly 200,000 envelopes came in. On this day, nothing came in. So you get this interesting heartbeat signal. Then what we did was we said, why don't we, on top of this, layer in the blanks, scribbles, and duplicates? Again, since the axis for the EVBs is higher, that's on the right axis. On the left axis, I've done the totals for the scribbles, blanks, and duplicates. What's fascinating is you notice in the early part, things are following the heartbeat, okay? But somewhere along here, particularly on October 26th, this heartbeat starts sort of separating, particularly the saffron line is the duplicates. So you have the duplicates stop matching in many ways this heartbeat. So here everything stops. So what we did was we did further analysis on the blanks, the duplicates and the EVBRE. And this is what's interesting. So what we're plotting here is the duplicates as a function of the daily percentage of EVBs. So here's a signal, but what you see is you see suddenly this, what you may call a significant growth in percentage. In fact, in several of these days, there's 96% of the ballots that came in on 2 of these days are duplicates. So there was a serious number of duplicates. In fact, the area under this curve is close to 30%, 25 to 30% of the duplicates came in between November 4th to November 9th. And that motivated us to also on the same plot, drop the blanks and the scribbles. And you see the same phenomenon there. Anomaly 7. I'm sorry, I've already gone through that. The next anomaly is we also noted that the EV33 system, which is the system that is the one that contains all the early voting ballots, had 932 voters who submitted duplicates versus the 17,126 that we identified. But what's fascinating is when we matched those 932 voters against our 17,126, only 2,138 voters matched. Let me repeat that again. The EV33, as we understand, we're not experts that this is a system where all the early voting ballots are stored. When that was gone through and found that 9,382 of those were voters who submitted duplicates, clearly this should be a subset of ours because we're supposed to have all the early voting ballots. We found out only 2,113 matched. And let me just walk you through some of these duplicates, where the duplicates are stamped and also approved. So you see the duplicate, and here it's being stamped. Nothing on here, it's being approved. Duplicate 1, duplicate 2, this one is being approved. And again, all of these came in after November 4th. Same here, another duplicate being approved, and a blank. Here's another one, example 3. 2 duplicates, the blank being approved. Same here, 4th example, and there are many others, but these are pure blanks, and they're being approved. In fact, this is a 3-copy duplicates, where 2 are approved. So 1 voter sent in 3 copies, and 2 got approved. Another one is 3-copy duplicates, where 1 is approved. All right, the next anomaly is verified and approved in the blank signature region. So what do I mean by that? So this is blank, but the verified and approved is appearing right in the blank. Again, this is process issues which we'd love to get answers to. So same thing here. Same thing here, the verified and approved is right there. And then finally, this is an interesting anomaly where we have 2 EVBs where people have the same voter ID, same name, address, and phone number with matching signatures with 2 different voter IDs, okay? So we had to redact this, but imagine if you could see this, there's a person's name here and address, which is the same as the name and address here. Very similar matching signatures, same phone numbers, but they have 2 different voter IDs. So let me repeat again. 2 different voter IDs, same name, matching signatures, as if you looked at them visually, same phone numbers. And another example here. Actually, there's 3 examples here. Another person here, we call, by the way, there's not a person called John Doe. This is a just to protect the innocent. And this is Jane Doe, again, matching signatures, same address, same phone number, but 2 different voter IDs. Same here, 2 different voter IDs, same address, same name. We don't have a phone number here, et cetera. So we have 3 examples of that. Then finally, the last anomaly I want to show is where we saw something fascinating is where the verified and approved stamp, and you have to look at this carefully, it's occurring behind the envelope triangle. Let me explain. So if you look at this carefully, this is an image of an envelope. Here is a triangle, which is pointing people to print here. Now, you would think if it was stamped, this stamp should be over this image, but it is actually behind the triangle. All right? And you see it here again, close up here. These are all different ballots which were approved post-November 4th predominantly, where the image of the verified and approved is behind this. Now, maybe this is done for a good reason. Maybe it's an imaging technology, but typically you could, if you use Photoshop, you'd have layers, but I don't want to even accuse that, but I just want to say that it is interesting that the verified and approved is behind the envelope here, the envelope triangle. All right. So, again, there's some examples here. So questions. These are the questions we have for Maricopa officials. One is, did Maricopa receive any duplicates? Again, I've gone through. We have in our possession 34,448 images representing 17 duplicates from 17,126 unique voters, 2-copy, 3-copy, and 4-copy. The word duplicate does not show up as a keyword in their report, but it would be interesting to know if duplicates exist. The second one, is there a reason that EchoMail has no signatures than reported by Maricopa? Is it because we solely analyze only the signature region? And if not, why? The next question is, why did EchoMail detect more scribbles in Maricopa's reporting of bad signatures? Again, this comes to the point which I probably emphasized enough here, but if our scribbles at that less than 1%, 0.1 to 1% pixel density were considered bad signatures, that is significantly more, 3 to 4 times more than the Maricopa's 587 bad signatures. And the other question are the date stamps and the directories that we have, the date on which the EVV return envelopes were received by Maricopa officials. We have assumed that when we did our time temporal charts. And then finally, why does the approval stamp, verified and approved, appear to exist only on a small subset of the EVV return envelopes? Out of all the 1.9 million, that verified and approved, we find most of them exist after 11/4, after election day, but very few sprinkled. So out of all those envelopes, our initial supervised review reveals maybe 10% have this stamp on them. The other thing is, did Maricopa stamp some EVV return envelopes as EVV approved, even though signature is blank, since they found a signature elsewhere? And that would be good to know. How did they do that? What is the adjudication process? Finally, all of this leads to a very important set of things from an engineering standpoint. What is the standard operating procedure? We call it an SOP for the EVV processing. If in any engineering system, you have the SOPs, because again, we're relying on this very, very important process of the signature and its verification. What is the SOP for the signature verification? And what is the SOP for curing of questionable signatures? And finally, what is the chain of custody? Talk a little bit more about that. And the last set of questions is, why was there a sudden surge of duplicates during 1104 to 1109, which is incongruent with the trend we were seeing with the early voting ballot return envelope counts? Finally, why is the verified and approved stamp envelope appearing behind the printed envelope triangle? How does that happen? Is there some imaging that's done? Are the envelopes printed? I mean, I just have a question from an imaging standpoint. And the other question is, can two different voter IDs be associated with the same person, the same address with matching signatures? Is that allowed? And then finally, why are blanks being stamped as verified and approved? And then more importantly, why is a stamp verified and approved appearing in a blank signature region? So those are our questions. In conclusion, as I started this conversation, the EVV return envelope is a container of the ballot. It's a very important thing. I mean, if you think about the human body as a system, your skin is what contains you. That envelope is what contains these ballots, a very, very important part. So there's significant opportunities to enhance precision, verifiability, reliability, auditability, and reproducibility. In the world of engineering systems, we call these properties. And these anomalies give us a wonderful opportunity to enhance at least these 5 attributes. So we believe what needs to happen is that our conclusion is a signature verification process, no pun intended, is unverifiable. Okay, we can't really verify this process. And there's a lack of systems integration and reporting. Example, the EV33s, which should have all the early voting ballots, just on the duplicates issue, we haven't had time to do a full systems integration. That wasn't the scope. But even on the ballots, we have far more duplicates than what are even in the system. And currently, to us, because we haven't been able to get access to the standard operating procedures, that is opaque and non-transparent. So the future research we believe that is absolutely necessary is we need to do full signature verification audit, which means do the full 27-point analysis. We have the capability right now. We have everything imaged. If we have if we acquire Maricopa's SOP for signature verification, if we can get their 27-point analysis algorithm, we can replicate all of this, and using the algorithm that they have, define an actual false positive, false negative error rate. What I mean by this is this would be a profound opportunity for improving US election processes, because this has not been done. You read literature on the left or the right, everyone complains that the signature verification process has significant issues. We have an opportunity right now with this data and the opportunity here to do a 27-point analysis and really come up with an actual rate, which would give us a scientific metric of the confidence value of the entire EVB system. And finally, we need to review the chain of custody. Today, what happens is when there's a questionable signature, people call the person, they contact them, and then they have some conversation, which is then verified. Where are those conversation records? Are those tickets stored anywhere? And do we have access to that? That's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. I'll take questions if there are any.
Dr. Shiva, just before you get off here, I think it's really important that we know your credentials. You kind of just breezed through that slide. Can you go back to that real quick and just go over your credentials for everybody, so that's important for us as we're reading your report.
Sure. Appreciate the opportunity to share that. Let me bring it up. So let me just give you a little bit of my background. I have 4 degrees from MIT, a PhD in biological engineering and what's called computational systems biology, which is all about doing computation, recognizing patterns. My master's is also from the MIT Department of Mechanical Engineering, where I did computational wave propagation to look at a very important area of pattern recognition called non-destructive testing, where you don't want to actually open up a bridge, or you don't want to open up an aircraft wing. You're sending signals in and you're classifying them. My other degrees from the MIT Media Lab in scientific visualization. My master's, where I also use these same techniques to do some of the earliest complex visualizations for classification. And my bachelor's is in electrical engineering and computer science, also from MIT, where I built for that one of the first cardiology systems for doing pattern analysis cardiology signals. But beyond that, my focus for 40 plus years has been in this field of pattern recognition and classification in biology and medicine, engineering, aeronautics, civil, electrical, banking, and finance, military, across a range of areas. Handwriting recognition on bank checks, email analysis. In fact, as a graduate student, I was the only graduate student asked to participate. I won the White House competition for automatically categorizing the White House's email. This is 1993, when email was becoming a consumer application, prior to when it was a business application of the email that I created back in 1978. In 1993 was when email actually became a consumer application. The Clinton White House was getting tons of email. They wanted to automatically analyze it. I ended up winning that, left MIT, took a 10-year hiatus, and built EchoMail for pattern analysis and recognition of emails. Did a lot of work for many years as an undergraduate, helping deaf-blind analysis of signature pattern analysis there. Currently, I work in a company called Cytosolve, where we're looking at analysis of signals, biomarker signals, to figure out the right combinations of medicines. That company actually got a multi-combination therapy allowed by the FDA for pancreatic cancer. I've written a number of patents, books. Anyone wants to go to vashiva.com, and you can look at my biography over there. I've published in the leading journals in the world. Nature Neuroscience is one of the eminent journals in the world. Cell Biophysical Journal, IEEE. These are high-impact peer-reviewed journals. The U.S. Copyright Office delivered me the first copyright for the invention of email. I'm a Fulbright scholar, a Lemelson MIT finalist. I won one of the earliest Westinghouse Science Honors Award. I was a nominee for the National Medal of Technology and Innovation. And I've been invited to give distinguished lectures at the National Science Foundation, NIH, FDA. In fact, in November 19, I delivered the prestige lecture on the immune system, an invited lecture at the NSF where we discussed the immune system. And several years ago, MIT had me deliver their Presidential Fellows Lecture.
Thank you for sharing that. You've raised a lot of very important questions for us to get answers to.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva. Your report was extremely insightful, and considering the fact that we only got the envelopes just a few short weeks ago, we appreciate you dropping everything, all of your other responsibilities, and jumped on this right away so that this could be accomplished by today's hearing date. So we appreciate that very, very much.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Fan. I also want to thank Doug Applegate and Phil Evans, two of my colleagues at EchoMail and the EchoMail team, in particular all the stakeholders. And again, I want to thank the courage of the leadership of the Arizona State Senate. This will go down in history as one of the most important engineering events, not just an election event. It will go down as a very important engineering event for the engineering systems of election voting systems. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm very honored to support this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva.